Hi guys, so welcome back. So this is day 2 of fasting. Yesterday was pretty easy, to be honest. It wasn't really difficult at all, and I think it's because I really do a lot of intermediate fasting anyways, and so I did feel a little bit hungry towards the evening, but nothing that was terribly dramatic, and I ended up just drinking a bottle of water, and I was fine. The next day, or this morning, I woke up and took Smokey for his walk, and it felt great to be active. And I don't want to say I feel lighter because I don't know that that's the case, but in some weird way, I really do. Um, but again, I'm fasting in my own style. And I did have a little piece of cheese so I could take my vitamin D because still I have to do dialysis. And so I still have to take vitamin D because I'm low on that anyways. And you can only take it when you have, when you consume it with food. So that was what I had a little bit earlier. And right now I just feel good. So I think I'm going to do a workout and probably take a nap and shower and then see what else the day holds because I feel really good. Um, and again, I am drinking coffee because usually coffee is not something that you can have on a traditional fast. But for me, that's what I'm going to do. And I need it to stay awake. But also, here's the other thing. When I was doing some deep dives into the internet to kind of look about fasting more specifically, I came across a guy on YouTube named Dr. Fung. I want to say it's Jason Fung, but I could be wrong. He's an Asian guy, and I believe he's out of Canada. And he is a nephrologist and deals with kidneys and deals with diabetes. And so usually those two go hand in hand. It's kind of rare if you don't have um, diabetes and have kidney issues. I don't, so I'm rare. Big surprise. But I'm starting to follow him because he's very wise. And he kind of gets a little bit too scientific-y for me because I just want to know, like, what do you do? I don't need to know, like, how everything affects each other, at least at this point. And then again, he does help with diabetic people. And so, being that that's not me, I kind of glaze over that a little bit. And sometimes really brilliant people can be a little monotone and boring. And so I have been watching quite a few of his videos, though, because he does talk about fasting and then how to come out of your fast once you're done doing it, which is very smart because and I know I've always touched base on this before, is when you aren't really fasting, but say you don't eat after 7 and then you get up the next morning, when you eat again, that is breaking your fast, which is how breakfast ended up into becoming. But I always found it very odd that people will consume so much like pancakes and waffles and French toast, like very heavy sugary things. Cereals, I think, are very terrible for kids, especially. And so when you look at your first meal of the day being breaking that, it's like your stomach needs to be reintroduced gently to something. And so his point of view or his opinion would be brothy type things or things that are really gentle, especially if you go for several days fasting. And so I think my first meal, my first real meal, I guess, in a sense, will be a very small cup of some type of Asian soup. I'm thinking probably like a wonton because it's not, it's so brothy. And then that way I can slowly reintroduce food back into my system. And again, I just want to say that I am not fasting because I have an eating disorder. I'm not fasting because, I want to lose 1,000,000 pounds really fast. These phone calls keep coming in. I mean, I do want to lose weight, but I also want to be very healthy about it. And I don't want to encourage anybody to get in that mindset of, oh, I need to lose weight, let me not eat. Because that can be something that is just so unhealthy for you. And so I do feel really good. I have to watch very carefully though, because I'm still on dialysis and I don't want to stress my kidney out more so than I need to. But at the same time, I'm also very passionate about just listening to my body. In fact, Glenda and I were talking the other day about how eating is so insanely confusing, because what you're doing 10 years ago, or even last year, say your job was very laborious, then when you don't do that anymore, like say you get to retirement age or whatever the case may be, you have to start to shift how you were feeding yourself before, especially if you're feeding yourself in a very specific way. And so, you know, when I got on dialysis and I started really discovering what is food doing to your bodies, that's when I realized, like, I really have to cut back quite a bit, because I'm not doing nearly as much as I did when I wasn't on dialysis, you know. And so with it being lifestyle change or just life in general, I have a partner now. And so instead of me, you know, maybe eating a little bit of whatever I made Ben, it's now like I'm making a meal for 3 adults. And so I know, and you know, they say when you're happy, you get fat. So it's like Dottie and I both have gained weight because we're just happy, and, you know, everything's fun and we're having a good time in life, and love each other. And so it's hard to, sometimes food is the key to that connection somehow. You know, you have fellowship, whether it's with your spouse or your partner, your family, your friends. You have a weird fellowship bond when you're eating together. The other night we went out to a little bar around the corner and listened to our friend's gig, and we ate dinner there. And by we, I mean I had water and Donnie had his hamburger that he loves, because that place is really good to eat. So if you're in Tucson, go to On the Rocks, because that place is so yummy. Their chef it's not bar food. It's like delicious. Anyways, again, it's called On the Rocks. But it was weird because I didn't eat. Donnie did. And of course, everybody around you is eating. And it was an awkward feeling, almost like you're left out of something, even though really you're not. But it just felt oddly uncomfortable. I don't know. I don't know. And I think that is when you have the muscle of discipline kicking in and you have to just decide which path you're going to take. And I don't think any path is perfect. And like, again, going back to Glenda and I talking, it was like, I'm not laborious outside. And so do I need a ounce ribeye steak every night? Well, no, I don't. But somebody else might. And it's weird how social media or just different groups get together to create the absolute thing for everybody, when it's like, but we're not the same. And so I really hope eventually that as the medical field, I feel like, bravo, is opening their minds to using food as a healer, that there'll be less and less like criticisms if you eat a certain way. Like if you're, you know, but there, I guess though, there are things like you can't reproduce protein You can't reproduce animal protein with any other thing. And so once you start picking apart food and figuring out what is actually in this stuff, I think that's when it just becomes so overwhelming, and then it's easier to just be like, okay, I'm just vegetarian, or I'm just vegan, or I'm just this, or I'm just that. And I think that the biggest thing is still moderation. I know, like, when I get really hungry for lettuce, it's usually because I'm dehydrated. And On the Rocks, by the way, has a lettuce wedge, which is iceberg lettuce, so no nutrients whatsoever, with some toppings and the salad dressing that's just amazing. But when I start thinking about it, or I want to eat that, or when we go, I order it, it's because I'm realizing that I'm thirsty. And so there's just weird things like that too that happen. And so I don't know, I kind of wish that there was a way for everybody to be like, okay, this is what you do. But I don't think there is. Another thing I'm looking into is that I'm Peruvian, therefore I eat potatoes a lot. So what, I may not be able to process, say, pasta in the same way as an Italian person might. I don't know. I mean, these are just things that I'm looking into, and I'm trying to learn and educate myself and explore, because that's life, right? I mean, why not explore it and see if it's good for you? And I feel like when you eat something, really listening to your body to see how your body is absorbing it and using it or disrupting it is actually more the key than cut this out, cut that out, cut that out. Although I do firmly believe processed foods filled with preservatives is just terrible food, so don't even eat it. I will always stand by that, because there's no reason to have crackers, honestly. And there's really no reason to, because let me say this real fast. When you're a family and you have 4 or 5 mouths to feed, it's not cheap. So eating ramen, eating cup of noodle, eating sandwiches, eating a big pot of spaghetti, eating a hamburger helper. And I've made all this stuff for my kids before because we're poor. That can really be so unnutritional for your body, and so, but that is part of the problem, I think, here in America, is that our finances are so, everybody's like paycheck to paycheck, it seems. And so when you have to feed that many mouths, you do what you got to do. And unfortunately, we go to the quicker route because, again, like, I was a single mom, so I had to work, all these things come into play. And then it's almost like they're just hoping that you feed, then you're just ending up feeding your family crap food instead of really good healthy foods, because you just don't have the time or the energy or the finances to buy the good stuff. And so I don't want to ever come across like I'm criticizing those of you who do, hamburger helper. Because my kid still does. I mean, oh my gosh. I'm like, don't feed Charlie that. But, I can't control what they do at their house. And they're trying to make ends meet too. And so it's not like, so it's just funny. But I still really will always stand firm on that part is just not eating that as much and not making it your staple meal. But then what do you do? I don't know. I don't know the answers. So I'm just living day by day, one step at a time, trying to discover and learn and educate myself, and then share those things that I am learning somewhat to you guys. And, just because we're on dialysis doesn't mean that we stop learning. Maybe that's my message today. Keep learning, because life is beautiful. All right, I'm going to work out. Talk to you guys soon. Bye bye.